Kenya is among the African countries trapped by debt. The country debt currently stands at $84 billion. That's equivalent to its GDP of just $84 billion. The country uses 63% of its revenue to repay its debts. So why can't the country just quit paying debt? Or why don't they default on their debts? Well, we'll explore today why that's impossible. First thing, what we must understand that Kenya is not the only country that is facing debt issues. Debt has been the greatest foundation of modern day finance. The entire global economy is based on debt, whether it's in the States, Europe, or even Asia. Every country has its own debt, and that's basically how the country operates. Without debt, the country cannot operate. So what we must understand that every country undergoes debt, but if it cannot be able to repay its debt, or if it is under burden, why can't it default? Because occasionally or historically, it is possible for a country to abolish its debts or abolish the payment of these debts because during crisis, when it is now unable to repay these debts. But this is not the like of the case, because if they default or are unable to repay these debts, then they are likely to face some consequences. So let's look at what makes them not to default on their debts. Many countries have defaulted debts. This includes Ghana, even in the great empires of Edward III. These countries have refused to repay their debts. But this country cannot default on its debts. Why? Because it is basically controlled by IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. So the majority of this country's debt is being controlled by these international monetary funds. And what we must understand is that the debt that they are given are also held by investors, which are mainly banks. The banks issue loans in terms of bonds. So the bonds are being bought by the investors in those particular countries, and then when they are repaid, then the bonds will be able to repay these people dividends or interest based on the amount of loan they have. So these investors basically expect countries to repay these debts even at the point of breaking. So this country is basically facing a few political unrest due to high taxation, and this cannot be able to help them because they are already in debt and they have to repay their debt if by any chance they have to get additional debt in the future. So this theory of debt repayment, or this foundation of debt repayment, cannot be done away with. Even if they repay their debt today, they will still have to borrow more so that to keep their machine of the economy running. So debt repayment is basically controlled by two theories. First, the theory of punishment, or the fear that their reputation will be damaged. So let's say, for example, if you lend someone something or some money and they are not able to repay them, you'll be considered as a very, very bad risk, and maybe in the future you will not be able to access these loans that are given for you to undertake your operations. So these countries will be able to repay